The FBI says they're putting every resource that they have into this investigation. They don't believe that there's a further threat, but they do believe that this particular suspect may have leanings towards the ideology of the Islamic State. And the FBI spoke just moments ago at a press conference. Let's take a look.
Do you have any reason to think that there's a connection to radical Islamic terrorism?
I would say at this time we're looking into all angles right now. We do have suggestions that that individual may have gleanings towards that particular ideology, but right now we can't say definitively, so we're still running everything to ground.
Okay, let's bring in Pierre Thomas now for more on this. So we've heard from the FBI and sheriffs on the scene that this is being treated as an act of domestic terror. They believe this person acted alone but came in from outside the area, and as you just heard there, some indications that he may have a radical Islamist ideology.
Yeah, George, that is being looked at very closely. The FBI is doing an extensive background check on this individual. They think they have a pretty good idea of who he is. So far, early indications, potential lone wolf. No particular specific information that he had ties to anyone overseas just yet. One of the key things that they look at early on in a case like this is, was this person radicalized on the internet, which would not require much support from overseas. From all indications so far, this person showed up well planned with his execution in terms of what he wanted to do, but the long-standing fear from the FBI is that ISIS in particular could radicalize people here via the internet, so that is being looked at very actively today.
And Pierre, some indications there, they know a lot more than they're telling us right now. So can you walk through exactly what they're doing now to try to determine who this was and how that person may have been radicalized?
Well, my guidance is that they have a vehicle, and that would potentially give them a name if they did not find ID on the suspect. Again, we don't know if they've done that because there was potential concern or concern about a potential device on his person, so they would have to be very careful about that. So that's why it's taking some time for them to confirm that they know exactly who they're looking for. But once that's done, once they have a name, they run these names through all the databases that the FBI and the intelligence community has to look at ties to Islamic groups. Was he under any kind of investigation? Has his name surfaced before? That type of thing is being done right now.
Some other interesting things we learned out of that news conference, Pierre, that they found not only what a suspicious device on the shooter himself, but perhaps something in his car. Also, they say that they have no indication at this point that the gunman targeted this location because it's a gay club. Pierre Thomas, we appreciate your reporting this morning. I'm sure we'll be coming back to you. Meanwhile, we do want to bring in former FBI agent Brad Garrett, who's an ABC News consultant. Brad, amplify, if you will, a little bit the point that Pierre was making about the phenomenon that keeps up so many of our national security officials and domestic security officials, the lone wolf phenomenon.
Well, the problem, obviously, Dan, is that identifying people who are out there with no formal connection to a group. Now, we've been lucky over the years as far as Islamic extremists are concerned, where they've been sloppy and they've said things over through the internet or contacted an informant or et cetera to head them off. But when you go to an individual that maybe is keeping their mouth shut, they develop an ideology that motivates them to go commit this type of mega violence. And, you know, you also could have two things going on here. I mean, could it be driven by an ISIS-inspired thinking? Perhaps. Is there an anti-gay overlay to it? Perhaps. So as the FBI, ASAC, basically in Orlando, said that this could go a number of directions, that it probably is some extremist. But is it an anti-gay organization? Is it driven by ISIS or some affiliated organization? Remains to be seen. But, you know, I will tell you the idea that it will take long to run that to ground, I don't think so. My guess is they know, as George mentioned earlier, a lot more information than they're sharing. They've got his identity. They may well be inside his computers at this point.
Brad, just a quick question about how law enforcement handled this situation. It dragged on for a long time, many hours. We know that the initial gunfire was at around 2 in the morning, but then it was around 5 in the morning that police used a Bearcat vehicle to break through the wall and end the hostage situation that was going on. Do you have any sense of why it would take that long?
Yes, because you don't know, Dan, what you're walking into. For example, there was some indication earlier that he had some sort of explosive device on him. One of the things, Dan, that drives what you do is what the witnesses are telling you. That's why it's so critical the people who exited the nightclub. What did you see? What did you hear? Describe the shooter. Is there more than one? How many weapons does he have? Did he have explosive devices? Because all of that informs how you go into this club. The last thing you want to do is do an entry. There's explosive devices inside the club that will obviously harm your officers and other victims inside the club. So it's the idea of when do we have enough intelligence to actually enter this scene, and maybe something precipitated it. Maybe they got a tip that he was going to shoot other people or was actively shooting people, so now we're going in, or do we have enough intel and now we're going to make an entry?
Right, Brad, and I know that authorities say that they saved 30 people during that hostage situation, but I have a question. The FBI spokesman was very adamant. He said they're going to bring every resource to bear for this investigation, but he said that he doesn't believe that there's a further threat in Orlando or across the country. How can he be so certain right now?
Well, I guess he has a comfort level that this is, as Pierre said, a lone wolf, potentially, and that he acted alone, and maybe they have found it's not uncommon for lone wolves to make statements, either on the internet, they may write a message, etc. That may also be driven by what age we have as a shooter. If he's older, maybe less internet, younger, perhaps more. So they now have enough intel, apparently, to have a comfort level. This is a lone person, I'm going to assume a lone male committed this act, maybe even have an idea why he committed this act, but that he does not have tentacles beyond himself. You know, that was the big concern we all talked about in San Bernardino, were they connected to anybody else that could potentially do another shooting or violent act? It seems like they've eliminated that at this point.
I know you're saying there's a lone wolf. They believe he's a lone wolf, but what about the possibility of copycat? Or copycat attacks? Are those a possibility right now?
Paula, always a big concern. Always a big concern because people use shootings to justify their own shooting. Or potential shooting. So could this trigger another mass shooting? Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the spike of up and down in school mass shootings, there is a tendency of them to come in maybe 3 or 4 at a time, perhaps, over a short period of time. So huge concern for law enforcement. But again, if you don't have the intel, you can't act.
Yeah, we always worry about this kind of horrific contagion. Brad Garrett, thank you. And just to point out that 42 people police are saying have been transported to local hospitals, and the mayor is telling us that probably upwards, north of 20 people killed in this attack.